Hello everyone, this is Tactical Lich here. Today's video is going to be slightly different as we have a best of 3 showdown between Soarve and ThePhoenixKing as the tournament finalist. This will be a rather tough fight for ThePhoenixKing as Soarve is playing the Beastmen here and ThePhoenixKing bringing in his main faction, the High Elves. Now for army builds, both armies are going extreme in the mobility department here with Beastmen. A wide infantry line, a bunch of Ungol spearmen herds and Ghoul herds will trade decently against any high elf low tier infantry. And the mobility department is definitely massive for his build, with 2 Sentinels on this flank, another 1 Sentinel on this flank, at the back a bunch of Razor Ghoul herds. They will be able to overwhelm the heavy cavalry of the high elves with their numbers. For single entities, we have the Brave Shaman on a Tuskghoul Chariot, Morgor the Shadowgave, and an Eye of Morslip. The Brave Shaman on a Tuskghoul Chariot, of course, is bringing in Traitorkin, just an amazing spell against any cavalry units. Now for ThePhoenixKing, a very narrow infantry line with only 3 Rangers unit in the infantry department, and all that funds are chucked into the mobility, the cavalry, with 4 Illyrian Reaver archers in the front line doing the skirmishing work, and at the back 2 Illyrian Reavers and 2 Dragon Princes. In the skies, we also have Alariel the Radiant on her Eagle, as well as an Arcane Phoenix. And that's basically it for army builds. Let's just get the battle rolling, and we can see the skirmishing fight is already started as the Illyrian Reaver archers are firing into the Sentinel with throwing axes. Now, a massive rock is chucked into the fray by the Eye of Morslip, blasting some of these Illyrian Reavers. One of the unit is already 7 models down and taking some quite significant HP damage. Another rock drops into the fray and dropping them down to 35 models. Over here, the Rangers push forward, but also facing the Sentinels with throwing axes. The armor-piercing fire is really dishing out the pain onto the Rangers regardless of their physical resistance, while the Eagles and Phoenix on the sky just pushing forward, trying to maybe pressure them away or catch them and force them off these Rangers. Although the Sentinels being able to fire while moving, they are chugging their throwing axes into the Illyrian Reavers, who are taking full damage as they do not have any shields to block incoming missiles. And at the same time, the Eye of Morslip is just constantly firing, chugging rocks into the fray, but the nice dodge from the ThePhoenixKing here, saving his Dragon Princes from a devastating rock drop. While the Illyrian Reaver archers are just trying to get their arrows into whatever they can find, as the rest of the High Elf units are pushing forward due to their lack of artillery advantage. The Eye of Morslip here, just a really nice centerpiece here, chugging the rocks into the fray, chipping away the health of all these Illyrian Reavers, and a nice Traitorkin catching 3 units of cavalry and 2 single models here, getting some really nice damage done onto all these Reavers. And with all these Illyrian Reavers and Dragon Princes surging forward, the mobility of the Beastmen are just holding back as the infantry are getting sacrificed, bogging down all these mobility, the cavalry of the High Elves, absorbing that charge damage. The Rangers are pulled out, and certain this is definitely a micro mistake here, a misselecting and leaving the Dragon Princes into the melee combat. Now pushing back the Rangers into the melee combat once again, and will be pulling out the Dragon Princes soon after. Over here, the Sentinels engaging into melee combat against the Illyrian Reavers, but this is not a fight that Reavers can win despite their numbers advantage, as Sentinels, especially with their primal charge and also the regiment renowned status of the Grook Hooves, as well as their regeneration, they will be able to beat back these Illyrian Reavers handily. Now over here, a Star of Avalon is going down, but not catching the most important unit here, the Arcane Phoenix, as it is now pushed off and pinned in by all these Razor Ghosts. The counter charge, the armor piercing damage really doing a number on all these heavily armored but separated high elf units, especially some of the Dragon Princes are already buckling under all these armor piercing and anti-large entities. Now with even Chaos Spawn coming into the back and just pinning them down with a rear charge, the Dragon Princes are getting caught between a rock and a hard place, while the Arcane Phoenix dueling a bunch of Beastmen hordes and also Morgor the Shadowgave. Without infantry support, it is taking massive damage regardless of the fast protection. And you can see the balance of power is truly against the High Elves, as the monsters and the hordes of infantry are just way too much for the High Elves to deal with. The Illyrian Reaver archers are not exactly enough to pull back the game, as they have taken quite some damage. While the Eye of Morslip is still very healthy, just chugging into rocks, smashing apart all these Illyrian Reavers, all these cavalry, Arcane Phoenix bogged down in combat against a bunch of Razor Goreherds, and Goreherds just dragging the Phoenix down with all their numbers. Dragon Princes, this one shattered, the other one is probably, yeah, not around at all. So that's basically it for the High Elves, as army losses is hit and the leadership of all these units will not hold. And Soarve from the RTK clan will be taking the first win. We'll go into the post-battle screen for a bit, quickly go through the army performances, and then we'll move on to the second one. Now, the Beastmen, definitely the bane of High Elves. I most certainly would ban Beastmen whenever I pick High Elves in tournament. Just a lot of nice, cost-effective, cheap infantry that can drag down all your High Elf units, and they also have some really cost-effective armor-piercing mobility. The Razor Goreherds, rather cheap in general. They will be able to drag down all these Dragon Princes with their numbers. Centaurs with throwing axes, definitely great armor-piercing value as long as they're not countered by the Illyrian Reaver archers. And unfortunately, in this battle, the Illyrian Reavers are getting bombarded by the Eye of Morslip, and in the end got caught in melee combat against the Centaurs, who will be overpowering them in hand-to-hand combat. As for the front line, the Rangers cannot hold up against all these Beastmen and just get smashed apart. Also, nice value coming in from the Brave Shaman with the Traderkin draining the health of all these mobility of the High Elves that they rely so heavily on in this game. Overall, just really cost-effective damage from all these Beastmen units against the High Elves. If you've watched my replays from last week, you might notice that there is another Beastmen versus High Elf replay, and ThePhoenixKing was playing the High Elf yet again, so I assume he was trying to figure out a competitive build to counter the Beastmen. Unfortunately, it seems that the build is still not quite there, but definitely this is still an impressive and valiant attempt in countering the Beastmen, as the Beastmen is just such a tough nut to crack for the High Elves. Now let's not doodle anymore, as we will be jumping straight into the second battle. Now here we are at the second game. We have the ThePhoenixKing this time playing the green side with the Wood Elves, and Soarve playing the red side with Lizardmen units. Both armies are going for an extremely wide build. Wood Elves here led by ThePhoenixKing, coming in with a lot of Eternal Gods, mixed in with some War Dancers and Wardens of Sithral. War Dancers with 40 attack and 38 melee defense, really good melee stats overall, and also some extra physical resistance. They will be trading extremely cost efficiently even against the Saurus Warriors. At the back we have some Glade Gods with Starfire Shafts. They are just a cheap and very good armor-piercing missile unit. They will be able to snipe out monsters and other armored units from the Lizardmen roster. This time will be probably the Cold One Riders. At the back we have 3 Wild Riders with shields. These Reindeer Cavalry are probably the best light shot cav in the whole game. They're fast, they're aggressive, they have a massive charge bonus of 68, 42 melee attack combined with Frenzy. They will be able to dish out massive pain, especially if they can get their hands on these fragile, squishy Chameleon Stalkers. Now for the leadership, we have Dryka coming in with a Pendulum, Enfeebling Foe, as well as the Dryad Summon. Now for the Lizardmen units, we have a front line of a bunch of Chameleon Skinks led by Oxyotl. Actually not Chameleon Skinks, but Chameleon Stalkers. Their explosive darts will be doing massive damage if they can just throw them into the lightly armored Wood Elf infantry. Now for the infantry department, we have the Skink cohorts mixed in with a lot of Skink cohorts with Jarvies and Saurus warriors with shields. On both flanks we have some Cold One Riders. We have one on a very far flank as well, and that's basically it for the Lizardmen army. No monsters there, probably trying to get a wider army instead of some expensive monsters that can get easily sniped out by Weight Watchers and Starfire Shafts. As for spellcasting department, some Doomflog to drain out some blobs of the Wood Elf infantry, as well as Transformation of Cardon, basically the Manticore Summon to pressure the backlines of the Wood Elves. So that's basically it for the army builds. Let's get into melee combat, as the Chameleon Skinks already throwing their explosive darts into the Wood Elf infantry, trying to get some good value beforehand, but a nice counter charge from ThePhoenixKing. The Wild Riders surging in, doing a devastating charge onto these glass cannon Chameleon Stalkers there. And also, with the Starfire shafts shooting in, these Chameleon Skinks are taking massive damage. But now, Soarve coming in with a nice counter charge with the Colon Riders, doing some pretty decent damage on these Glass Cannon White Riders. Although there is a enfeebling foe coming in from Draika there, debuffing their stats, preventing them from doing any more charge damage onto the Wild Riders. Over here, some Chameleon Stalkers now getting onto some Eternal Gods with the explosives helps. They should be able to win this engagement. However, there's also some support for the Eternal Gods. Wild Riders surging in to support their brothers. The Reindeers will trample the Chameleons. However, the Cold Ones are coming in for a rear charge, putting the Wild Riders in a bit of a pickle. Now back to the front line over here. This is an absolute slugfest with Elves and Lizards dying left, right, and center, but with the Eternal Gods pouring in to screen out the Cold One Riders. The Wild Riders are able to pull out from the engagement alive, albeit severely damaged, leaving the Cold One Riders being slaughtered by all the armor-piercing anti-large infantry. Now even the War Dancers are getting into melee, blending their way through all these Saurus warriors with their far superior melee stats and the numbers advantage, as well as the armor-piercing fire. The Saurus are getting slaughtered. However, the numbers advantage of the Lizardmen is really coming in, putting a massive pressure on the right flank of the Wood Elves. Being overwhelmed, all these units are getting dragged down in melee combat. They are forced to charge into combat against Saurus warriors to stem the tide and trying to stop these skink cohorts from getting into melee to pressure the Glade Gods. But it's just probably not enough at this point, as the Glade Gods are now shut down, unable to fire, and the Wild Riders are just pouring in, trying to do whatever damage they can do to get these guys off the backs of the missile infantry of the Wood Elves, so that the Starfire shafts can continue to fire into the Lizardmen units. However, they are pulling out again to go after the Cold One Knights on the right flank. Still, even with the missiles being shut down, the Wood Elves seems to be in a pretty decent position overall, as the spear units in the front are still grinding through a bunch of Saurus warriors, still holding Draika, sniping out the Skink Priest of Beasts, shutting down the Lizardmen spell casting once and for all. Besides, there are still a lot of healthy Eternal Gods still around there, dragging down the monsters and just holding back all these Saurus warriors. The War Dancers still very healthy at this point, just rushing into the backs of these Chameleon Skinks, blending through all these Glass Cannon units and then fighting through a bunch of Skink cohorts. And an overview, the Wood Elves are gaining an upper hand as their infantry, despite the fleeing Wild Riders on the periphery of the map, are cleaning up all the battered Lizardman units. Wardens of Sithro, the elite guardians of Wildwoods, they refused to back down from combat. Despite being surrounded and outnumbered by the Saurus, they held their ground until their last sliver of HP runs out, buckling just now. Now, some Skink cohorts rushing in, trying to drag down the Eternal Gods, but really, they don't have the good stats to drag down all these defensive infantry. With 44 defense, they should be able to hold up against even the healthiest of Skink cohorts. And we have the War Dancer in here blending through all these chaff units of the Lizardmen, while the Wild Riders using their superior speed to clean up all these routing Skink cohorts. The Conan Riders are trying to get into melee combat to save the Skinks, but with the Glade Gods with Starfire Shaft being secured now, with all these War Dancers and Eternal Gods protecting them, they're just firing into the fray, chipping away the health of Conan Riders, routing them, allowing the Wild Riders to shatter them on impact. Now back to the middle, Draika, despite being rather tattered, is still leading her army against the Lizardmen forces. She excels in this kind of situation as her damage HP provides the plus 10 melee attack and plus 10% base weapon damage buff to units around her. Combined with Enfeebling Foe, severely lowering the stats of the Saurus warriors, the Eternal Gods with their juiced up offensive stats will be able to rout these tattered Lizardmen units, eliminating all Lizardmen presence in the middle. While over here, War Dancers just rushing around the battlefield, roaming around, cleaning up all these tattered Saurus infantry. Oxyotto trying his best to do whatever damage he can get onto the key units of the Wood Elves, but it's just not possible with the Malevolent Dryad summons coming in, rushing after him, trying to surround them and pin him down, as the Wild Riders, the last unit of Reindeer Cavalry, now done with chasing routing units, is also going straight after Oxyotto. And yeah, that's basically it for the Lizardmen there. There's not much they can do to pull back the battle, as all that's left are some really tattered Skink units. The Skink cohorts can't even rout off the remaining Wood Elf archers, and that's basically it. Soarve throws in the towel, and the Phoenix King will be pulling back one game, with an amazing display of Wild Riders micro. Now let's go into the post-battle screen for a quick rundown of the battle here. The War Dancers blending their way through all these skinks, including chameleon skinks, the skink cohorts, and skink cohorts with Javis, 171 kill. The Wardens of Sithro there, not a lot of cost-effective engagement as there are just no monsters for them to fight. No monsters, only infantry, so in the end, being forced to fight through a bunch of Saurus warriors and skinks, they just got dragged down. However, their kills are still pretty impressive with 112 kills. Glade Gods there, trying to get back their value, but with a nice pressure from all the numbers from the skink cohorts, they are shut down pretty hard by Soarve. It's just that the Wild Riders are just so good. You have all of them here, most of them earning back their value, 134 kills on this one, 105 kills on this one. This one did slightly worse, but still, overall, the Wild Riders are still earning back enough to cover their own costs, earning back some chevrons as well. There was some amazing countercharge from the Wild Riders performed by ThePhoenixKing, charging down the Cold One Riders, and then also just bounding around the battlefield, trampling the Chameleon Stalkers and Skink cohorts left, right, and center, using the superior attack stats to crush the Saurus infantry and the Skink infantry, who do not have the best melee defensive stats. So yeah, the ThePhoenixKing was able to utilize these best lightweight shock cav in the whole game, using the reindeer cavalry to drag himself back one victory, and thus we will be proceeding into the third battle, and the final battle to decide who is the champion in the tournament. And here we are at the final battle between the legendary warriors of the old world, Soarve versus the ThePhoenixKing. This time Soarve is taking the green side, leading the greenskins with Grom the Paunch, while the ThePhoenixKing going for a triple elf match, coming in with the Dark Elves as well as Morathi herself. Now for army builds, for Soarve, the greenskins, we have a rather wide build. We have the Apic Loonies, Orc Boys, and just a bunch of more Orc Boys and a couple Savage Orc Biggins as the infantry line, supported by one lone unit of Gobbles. At the back we have a couple Stone Trolls as well as Grom the Paunch bringing in a bunch of his buffs, including the Lucky Banner. Now for the mobility, we have a bunch of Spider Rider Archers, Wolf Rider Archers, Spider Riders mixed in, deploying on the opposite flanks on the battlefield. We'll be providing some nice skirmishing fire, even charging into combat, maybe harassing backlines of the Dark Elves if necessary. Now for the Dark Elves, an extremely wide build with the infantry, a lot of numbers here, Dread Spears, Bleak Swords, Black Arc Corsairs, deploying in only a single line and going extremely wide in the front line. And at the back we have a couple Dread Spears protecting some Dark Shards. For mobility, we have 4 Dark Riders with shields, and in the skies we have Morathi on her Dark Pegasus coming in with Soul Stealer and Doombolt. Also, as a monster and anchor in the front line, we have the Chill of Saunter, the Frosty War Hydra. And that's basically it for the army builds. Let's just get the battle going and see who will be the champion of the tournament. Soarve with the greenskins or ThePhoenixKing with the Druki. Both armies are just surging forward, the Dark Elves trying to rush forward with the numbers advantage in the front line. Normally they'll probably just get beaten back, but if they can use the Dark Riders with proper charges, supporting the infantry with some nice hammer and anvil, they might be able to break apart the low leadership of the greenskins. ThePhoenixKing trying to go for some free charges, just charging down all these Orc Boys before they can actually react in combat. Black Arc Corsairs engaging Savage Orc Biggins with their heavy armor, they should trade okay, especially with the anti-infantry bonus. Now the Chill of Saunter getting bogged down by Mythler, debuffing the speed, and Grom the Paunch charging in, trying to snipe it out. And also in the distance we have the Stone Trolls charging into combat. The Chill of Saunter is pulling out. However, the Dark Riders who are trying to bog down Grom the Paunch and the Stone Trolls are getting out of position here, getting smashed apart in melee combat, and they're unable to protect the Dark Shards who are being charged down by the Forest Gobble Spider Riders and also the Spider Rider Archers. Now the Dark Shards, they are unable to fire as they are bogged down in combat, and this gives the Stone Trolls all the time they need to just flood forward without any fettering from all the missile fire, the armor-piercing missiles. They are just free to do what they want, trash the front line of the Dark Elves and going after Morathi and the Chill of Saunter. The rest of the Dark Elf infantry are also buckling as most of the Dark Riders are unable to get into position to perform the much-needed hammer and anvil. Without cavalry support, it is basically expected that the Bleak Swords buckle against the Orc Boys and the Gobbles. In the middle, the bloody brawl is still going with the Chill of Sontar pulling out before getting killed by the Stone Trolls. Doombolt is dropped earlier to do some really nice damage on the Stone Trolls due to the high missile damage, killing one model, but that's basically it. The Stone Trolls are still fighting with a lot of models left, and the rest of the Dark Shards and the Dark Elf Infantry are just on a mass exodus. Some extremely tattered Dark Riders are charging into some Orc Boys, and in the front line, Morathi is extremely damaged as well, being surrounded by a bunch of powerful entities, Grom the Paunch, Stone Trolls, and even the Orc Shaman in there. Despite Morathi's desperate attempt to heal herself up with Soul Stealer, the damage from the blood fight is just too much for her. The Chill of Sontar is fighting short, but the anti-large Savage Orc Bacons are still fighting. Once Morathi is forced to land again, she'll just get beaten up by all the single entities, Grom the Paunch, the Orc Shaman, River Troll Hag, and of course the Savage Orc Bacons. The Chill of Sontar isn't in any good shape either, down to half health, being dragged down in the melee combat, especially with the Wolf Riders shooting into the fray, chipping away what's left of his health. The balance of power is ebbing more and more against the Dark Elves. The Dark Elves ThePhoenixKing is still trying to rally the units to go back into the melee combat to try to pull this one off, but Morathi, being stuck against so many powerful single entities, just simply can't take it anymore. The regrouping Black Ark Corsairs are charged down by the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, unable to aid Morathi in melee combat, and with Grom the Paunch buffed up by melee attack buffs from his abilities, is just destroying Morathi. And with that, army losses is hit, the Chill of Sontar is routing as well, and victory belongs to Soarve. He will be claiming the title of the Champion of the Grave, winning the tournament. Now let's go into the post-battle screen, give a quick rundown of performances, and wrap up this intense showdown between the two top-tier players in the tournament. Now for Soarve, the Orc Boys just doing spectacularly against the inferior infantry of the Dark Elves. The Bleak Swords, Dread Spears, just unable to withstand the might of all these big guns, Orc Boys, the savagery of the Greenskins. And without any protection from the Dark Riders as they were thrown into melee combat trying to pin down the Stone Trolls, pin down Grom the Paunch, also getting stuck on some Greenskin infantry, the Goblin Riders were able to just charge into the backlines, destroying the Dark Shards, stopping them from firing into the Stone Trolls. And with that, the Stone Trolls are just fighting without any hindrance. No more armor-piercing fire from the Dark Elves. They just wreck the front line, surround the Chill of Sontar and Morathi, and smash whatever resistance the Dark Elves tries to muster. And in the end, that's how Grom the Paunch being able to get so much value, as all the units of the Dark Elves are just pinned down by the Stone Trolls, unable to escape, and Grom the Paunch just free to do whatever he wants. Now for the Dark Elves, the infantry, as I've said before, got crumped by the Greenskin frontline. The Black Ark Corsairs could have fought a little bit more favorably against the Savage Orc Bacons. After all, they do have high armor and anti-infantry bonus. However, the Stone Trolls saturating on top of the Bacons provided a lot of armor piercing and terror support. That really crumped the Black Ark Corsairs as they rely heavily on the heavy armor to protect themselves. Now the Dark Shards getting shut down properly by all the Greenskin mobility, unable to do any damage. Same for the Dark Riders, they're getting charged rather precariously by ThePhoenixKing there. Probably would have been better if they can just put the Dark Riders at the back line to fend off the Greenskin Riders. Really, it's just the mismicro of the Dark Riders probably costing the ThePhoenixKing the game. Chill of Sontar, it was a solid unit. It probably could have done much more if they received proper support, but unfortunately, with all the units of the Dark Elves on the run, they were unable to fight in a proper situation, and in the end, just got wrecked and surrounded by all the Greenskin units. And that's basically it for today's video. Congratulations for Soarve for becoming the champion of the tournament, and really appreciating ThePhoenixKing for putting up such an impressive fight. I'm also really thankful for all the players joining my tournament. Without you guys, I will not be able to host this event, and also unable to present such amazing content to the viewers. Recently, I also just hosted another October tournament with a bunch of Greenskin subfactions. I do have one replay from the whole tournament to showcase, which will be up at some point in the future, not sure when. And if you want to see more of these kind of replays, Do remember to hit the like and subscribe, as I'll be regularly uploading videos including battle replays, tournament showdowns like this one, wild army builds, tips and strategies for Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer. So remember to hit subscribe to get notified every time I upload new content. And if you want to join future tournaments, there's a link to my Discord down below in the description, so hit that up and join my Discord, and I'll be posting new announcements for new tournaments in the Discord server. And that's basically it for today's video. I hope you enjoy it. That was some amazing showdown between Soarve and the Phoenix King. Soarve securing the first victory with a swarm of Razor Gore herds. The Phoenix King pulling back the second game with his impressive Wild Rider micro. And in the third game, Soarve and his greenskin boys there crumping their way through the Dark Elves, earning his title as the champion of this tournament. And this concludes the tournament finals best of 3, the incredible gameplay between Soarve and the Phoenix King. Once again, thank you Soarve and the Phoenix King, as well as everyone who has played in the tournament. Really appreciated your support and participation. You guys have showcased some top quality gameplay that I was able to cast on the channel. For viewers who are still watching this video, thank you for your viewership and support. I hope you enjoy these battles as much as I did, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.